In spite of the fact that Dr. Taylor Hayes has spent her whole career assisting other people in repairing their minds and hearts, her own heart had been through more than its fair share of pain. She'd had a hard time keeping that professional distance when it came to Ridge Forrester, since she was unable to completely avoid the intense feelings that he evoked in her. The history of their relationship was a complicated tapestry that was weaved with love, treachery, and endless reunions and separations. Taylor had made the decision that it was finally time for her to focus her own health, both psychologically and physically, after the recent wedding disaster that she had experienced. Taylor had been feeling weird and unpleasant symptoms in the days that followed her separation from Ridge. These symptoms included a tightness in her chest, waves of dizziness, and instances when her heart would accelerate without any prior warning. The stress and sadness had taken their toll, leaving her fatigued. In the beginning, she dismissed it as stress, suggesting that it was something that she could handle on her own. However, the symptoms continued to worsen, and she soon found herself in a position where she had no choice but to confront the reality. It was with great reluctance that she went to the hospital for examinations, only to be confronted with a diagnosis that rocked her to her very core: Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, which is more specifically referred to as broken heart syndrome. After a number of weeks of struggling to come to terms with her diagnosis and the emotional upheaval that accompanied it, Taylor finally felt that she was prepared to reveal this aspect of herself to Ridge. She was well aware that she owed him, as well as herself, an open and honest chat about the profound impact that his decisions had had on her and the actual toll that they had taken on her heart. When Ridge Forrester received the call from Taylor, he was at his office, deep in meditation until the call came through. Although she spoke in a cautious manner, the sound of her voice immediately pulled at something that was buried deep inside him. He spoke gently and murmured, "Taylor, how are you doing?" A delay occurred before Taylor said, "Ridge, would you be willing to talk to me? If it is not too much trouble for you, I would want to meet with you in person." Ridge felt his heart beat faster. The fact that this wasn't a casual request was something that he could tell. Without a doubt, it would be great to meet you. Ridge, who had just agreed to meet at Il Giardino, picked up the phone and found himself experiencing a peculiar mixture of excitement and terror at the same time. There was something about this that seemed different, despite the fact that they had been through a lot. It was possible that it was her tone, which was steady but tinged with a fragility that he hadn't heard from her in quite some time. Taylor was already seated when Ridge arrived, and her eyes was distant as she glanced at the busy restaurant that was all about her. Upon noticing that he was getting closer, she raised her head and smiled, albeit one that was not quite big enough to reach her eyes. She started off by saying, "Thank you for meeting me," in a low voice. Ridge moved onto the seat opposite her and turned his attention to the woman's face. "I want you to know that I will always be here for you, Taylor. You are free to tell me about anything it is." After taking a few deep breaths, Taylor began to collect her thoughts. "Ridge, I have something very important to bring to your attention, something that I have been dealing with on my own. After everything that took place, I honestly believed that I would be able to deal with it, but I was incorrect." The expression of concern appeared on Ridge's face. "Are you feeling okay? Could there be a problem with this?" Following a brief period of hesitation, Taylor ultimately stated, "I was diagnosed with broken heart syndrome. This is a real-life circumstance. Because of the amount of stress that my heart has been under, it has become weaker, and the doctors have stated that it was most likely caused by, well, everything that has to do with you and us." After a period of perplexity, Ridge's look changed to one of disbelief, and then finally to one of guilt. It was an instinctual movement on his part to reach out and cover her hand. "Taylor, I never dreamed that I would. I never intended for you to experience any kind of pain, much less to the extent that it would endanger your physical health." The gentle take of her hand away from him was accompanied by a sad smile from Taylor. "It's not true, I know that. Your decisions, however, have had an impact on me, regardless of whether you intended to or not. I have spent a great number of years loving you, and I have given you aspects of myself that I have never really regained. And every time you've chosen Brooke, Every time you've left, it's chipped away at me. And every time you've had to leave." Ridge was unable to say anything, and his mind was racing as he attempted to comprehend what Taylor had said. Through the years, he had been aware, on some level, that he had been the source of her suffering. Nevertheless, it was a sad experience to hear the palpable and physical imprint that it had left on her heart. As he mumbled, "I'm so sorry, Taylor," his voice was thick with the sadness that he felt. "I am aware that apologies are unable to alter the past, yet if I could go back in time, I would wish that I could take back some of the things that I did, the way that I caused you pain." Despite the fact that her eyes were hazy, Taylor could be seen giving him a smirk. "It is my pleasure, Ridge. However, we are unable to go back, are we? All of the harm has already been done. In my heart." The break was followed by her repression of her feelings. "It is not enough for my heart to heal physically. It also needs time to heal," I said. As Ridge felt the waves of remorse race through him, he clenched his hands. "Is there anything that I can do to help? Is there anything that could be of assistance?" The head was shaken by Taylor. "Not at all, Ridge. It is necessary for me to carry out this task for myself. I have, for far too long, put my happiness dependent on you, on the two of us. Having said that, this diagnosis has compelled me to confront the fact that I cannot continue to live in such a manner. It is imperative that I establish inner tranquility, apart from all of the highs and lows that we have experienced." Ridge remained silent as the pressure of her words continued to exert itself on him. Perhaps for the first time, he came to the realization that Taylor had made a great deal of sacrifices throughout the course of her life. He learned that she had frequently put her own well-being on the back burner in order to pursue a love that was never within her grasp. His voice was hardly audible above a whisper as he spoke to Taylor. "You deserve peace," he whispered. "More than anyone else, you get the right to feel complete." A peculiar sensation of relief came over Taylor as she revealed her innermost thoughts to Ridge. It was almost as if the first step toward healing was for her to let herself grieve and finally acknowledge the agony that she had been experiencing. For a considerable amount of time, she had been attempting to maintain their relationship, despite the fact that it was obvious that it was only causing her additional suffering. The words, "Thank you for listening, Ridge," were spoken in a low voice. "These are the things that I needed to say, not only for myself, but also for us. If there is going to be any kind of future between us, it is imperative that a foundation of honesty and comprehension be established." With a steady gaze, Ridge nodded his head. "You may take my word for it, Taylor. I will be here for you in any capacity you require. And if it means taking a step back to allow you to discover your own meaning in life, then that is exactly what I will do." A promise that was both reassuring and sad. The words lingered in the air between them like a promise for the future. Taylor was aware that this was not a miracle cure for all of their problems, but she recognized that it was a beginning. For the very first time, she had the sensation that she was taking charge of her own life and directing her own path toward a destiny that was all hers. Taylor immersed herself in her profession and her own personal healing in the days and weeks that followed the event. She started going to therapy sessions, putting more of an emphasis on self-care, and even started practicing yoga and meditation as a means of effectively managing her stress and fortifying her heart. Her journey was not an easy one, but each day moved her one step closer to regaining a sense of completeness throughout her life. A journey of self-reflection was something that Ridge, too, found himself on. It was during his visit to Stephanie's grave that he began to reassess the way he had spent his life, namely the way he had loved. He was looking for solace and clarity from his mother, who had passed away. Within his heart, he was aware that he had taken Taylor for granted, and he made a secret vow to himself that he would never make the same mistakes again. The soul of Taylor improved in tandem with her physical health. She started to experience a sense of freedom that she hadn't felt in years, a lightness that she hadn't felt in years thanks to the realization that her connection with Ridge was no longer the defining factor in her life. She was a woman who had ideas and objectives that went beyond any romantic relationship of any kind. She was her own person. After several months had passed, Taylor found herself standing on the brink of a cliff that she had visited before, which overlooked the ocean and was a location where she and Ridge had discussed numerous memories. Ridge was able to locate her in this location, his footfall being gentle as he took his approach. He stopped a few feet away and whispered, "I knew I'd find you here," as he slowly approached. A calm smile appeared on Taylor's face as she turned around. "It is a pleasure to meet you again, Ridge." They remained in a state of comfortable stillness for a brief period of time, the past and the present merging in a manner that was eerily tranquil. "Taylor," Ridge said, his voice brimming with feel for the situation, "the reason I came here is to express my admiration for you. You have been through a lot, but through it all, you have emerged more powerful than you were before." The grin on Taylor's face grew wider as she felt a sense of completion wash over her. "It is my pleasure, Ridge. In addition, I should let you know that I have forgiven you. In addition, I have forgiven myself. Finally, it is time to let go of the past and move on to better things." The minute Ridge stretched out to her, his hand was hovering just over hers, but he stopped himself because he realized that this was a moment for Taylor and not for him. "It is my goal that you, Taylor, will find all that you are seeking for. I am eternally thankful for the things that we had in common." When Taylor turned her attention back to the ocean, she smiled warmly and nodded, and she felt a sense of calm that she had never experienced before. She had at long last discovered how to love herself, and as a result, she had not only put her heart back together, but also her spirit back together. While Ridge was leaving, Taylor took a deep breath of the salty air and experienced the sensation of a new chapter beginning, a chapter that was entirely hers. She was prepared to welcome the future with open arms, having allowed herself to let go of the past and the sadness that it had brought.